Hi, I'm Drew Conry-Murray from the Packet Pushers. Welcome to our Livestream event sponsored by Dell Technologies. We're talking about data processing units, or DPUs. For this segment, I am joined by Paul Turner. He is Vice President of Project Management at vSphere, at VMware's vSphere. We're going to dive into how vSphere Distributed Services Engine, how it's the secret sauce for data processing units, or DPUs. Paul, first, can you give us a background vSphere Distributed Service Engine? How does it relate to Project Monterey and to DPUs?
Yeah, so we've managed to confuse everybody with a confusing name. So
let's see if we can get some clarity then.
Yeah, Distributed Services Engine is basically Project Monterey. But
Okay.
it's a feature of vSphere. One of the things we wanted to make sure is that this got broad adoption by our customers, and that they didn't have to. This wasn't just a new product or a new feature that they needed to buy and acquire. It's not like that at all. It's actually built in as a standard feature into vSphere Enterprise Plus with vSphere 8.0. When we released it, Project Monterey, it was called the Distributed Services Engine, has been implemented in as a new feature. Once you have the Enterprise Plus licenses, which is what most of our customers have, you're automatically entitled to the full feature set of Project Monterey, or the Distributed Services Engine. So what is the Distributed Services Engine? What we've done is we've taken a version of ESX. We basically really stripped out ESX down to kind of a bare bones operating system. It's actually an incredibly light kernel operating system when you get down to it. But we took that kind of kernel of the operating system, we basically implemented it on the ARM cores sitting on that SmartNIC. Uh-huh. So you've now got, on a single server, you've got two ESXs. You've got an ESX that's running up on the CPU cores. You've got an ESX that's running on the ARM cores, but that's a really microkernel kind of ESX that's running on this ARM cores. That SmartNIC, that DPU, I'm going to keep saying SmartNIC and DPU, that DPU device is an in-band processing engine. So that allows us, and what we've also done is changed ESX, that whenever it sees that a DPU is in place, as it streams I/O and traffic, it can stream them out through the DPU device. And that allows us to run encryption services, firewall services. As we move forward, we're adding in storage acceleration into that. We're also looking at being able to do remoting from the SmartNIC. So all of these services we can now run because we now have a processing engine sitting on the DPU. And we do this all without the customer needing to worry about extra operations, same operational interface.
Okay, so Project Monterey was VMware's initiative to virtualize DPUs. That's now sort of been, I guess, rebranded as Distributed Services Engine in vSphere.
Right.
That's the kernel I'm running to then run applications on top of a DPU or data processing unit, which is essentially a SmartNIC that I'm plugging into my server. Okay, so I've got that. What applications or services from VMware can I then run on top of this essentially ESX instance on a DPU?
Yeah, so right off the gate, right? So think that the customers deployed these vSphere Enterprise Plus instances. You're probably running the distributed switch, standard distributed, the DVS, VDS distributed switch is used in almost all customers because it allows us to actually take a cluster of servers, be able to do non-disruptive rebalancing without affecting their IOs. It gives us a lot of advantages. So you can take that VDS accelerated traffic, and we actually take the switch traffic, and we can actually move the switch traffic and processing actually into the SmartNIC. So that's the first thing. The nice advantage of that is we actually see some great processing gains. You actually get significant number of cores back for processing for your applications. But most importantly, we're actually seeing good improvements in latency, far reduced latency, which means for certain type of latency sensitive applications, this will be a much more efficient way of actually doing network traffic and doing switch traffic. So first part we're doing is, for anybody, we're able to move the switch traffic down there. But for customers that are running NSX, which is our software-defined network, you're also able to move firewall services down onto the SmartNIC. So that means that as you're continuously looking at enforcing kind of firewall policies on a per application basis, that enforcement can actually be done from the SmartNIC. In the next release, we're looking at bringing in storage processing. So that will also feed down through the SmartNIC. And then also encryption services. So as you turn on, wireline encryption where you want to have continuously encryption, our belief is that the world is moving towards kind of continuous confidential computing, which means that data will always be secured at all times in all aspects, whether it's runtime on the CPU, whether it's network I/O, whether it's on the GPU. It doesn't really matter. We're always going to be encrypting data. That takes processing. So that processing we can also move down onto the DPU.
Okay, so that's interesting. I can see, an argument for wanting to distribute switching functions, firewalling functions, get those services as close to a workload as possible. But I'm curious if this now adds operational complexity because I'm essentially scattering services or processes across hundreds or thousands of nodes as opposed to just having a few firewalls that I have to worry about in my environment traditionally.
So I think in the I mean, that's a general comment on software-defined networking, but it's not actually done in that way. So what we do with software-defined networking is we actually build in the switch directly into the virtual device or into the application effectively. Mm-hmm. And so in that way, you don't even need to know it's there. It just happens to be a service that's actually running inside in the kernel. And it feeds into every one of it manages effectively all of the VMs that are running on top. So you don't need to worry about that. So, complexity is something that we are very conscious of. I think the world of DPUs was getting increasingly complex. We were having different operating environments by different vendors. And as you have heterogeneous vendors with heterogeneous operating systems, you're never going to build an environment that's conducive for ISVs or third-party applications to actually build innovation because it's too difficult if they have different devices that they need to support. So one of the big things that we're doing with the distributed services engine is we're virtualizing it, which means it runs just like you can on any other server today. You don't need to worry about how it runs because VMware has virtualized that device. You just need to add your device into VMware's virtualization and you're able to support all of those devices. And that's one of the big things that we're doing is making it so that it'll become a very open ecosystem for people to add applications. And then the second is operationally, as I mentioned earlier, this is not a difficult operation for you. As you're running in vCenter and you've got a SmartNIC enabled, say a cluster with a set of servers, all with DPUs on those servers, this is just effectively a click button. You're basically indicating that server is actually now DPU enabled. VMware takes care of all the rest. We upgrade the software, we patch the software, we do all of that without you needing to worry about it.
So how do I manage and operate this? Am I sort of jumping between consoles, between my CPU vSphere environment and my distributed services engine for DPUs?
No, you're not seeing the front end of the DPU at all. So the DPU is that's why we call it the distributed services engine. It's just an engine within ESX effectively. So just like you have GPUs today, GPUs show up as devices inside vCenter and managed devices. The DPU shows up in a similar way. So just like you're managing a server, you're managing a set of servers. Those servers happen to have DPUs on them. You can actually go into the device interfaces. You can have a look at the settings. You can have a look at the versions. You can have a look at what's on that DPU, but you don't need to worry about it. We take care of it. We treat it just like any other device attached. And from you operationally, that's all you need to worry about.
Okay. So the fact that I've got, maybe a bunch of virtual switches running on DPUs in my data center, of course, if there's an issue, the network is going to be the first thing to get blamed. Can I pull telemetry off of distributed services engine so that I can see if there actually is a problem with the virtual switches? You
can. So we've got support for SPAN, which is basically a way for us to do network traffic analytics and basically do port redirects. So you can do port redirection and then you can actually run analytics on your favorite kind of port analyzer. So that kind of service is possible. It means you need to then go and plug in your kind of SPAN type device. But those are
whatever packet broker I'm using, it'll tap into that.
Exactly. Now we are looking ourselves at whether we need to actually add some of those services locally and just have them always there. Mm-hmm. But we haven't done that just yet. But of course, as we move forward, we're going to continuously evolve this DPU and actually add extra services that we see of value for customers.
Okay. What DPUs is Distributed Service Engine currently supporting?
So today we're actually already shipping with AMD Pensando, with NVIDIA Bluefield 2, They're the two kind of leading vendors out there. We're also doing a lot of work with Intel and others and in the SmartNIC ecosystem to look at, DPU ecosystem to look at continuously evolving the space. But our goal is keep this as a heterogeneous environment and allow the customers to choose the best DPU possible.
So the same approach to CPUs then, VMware, it sounds like it's taking to DPUs. They're not picking favorites. Whatever customers seem like they're going to want to run on, you'll be there.
That's exactly right. We're led very much by what customers are adopting. And when we look at even in the server and CPU market, we're led by what we see deployments in enterprises. And so as we see adoption, where we see the growth, we're going to lean in and make sure that we support those devices that are in use in your data center, and make sure that we can keep this as a very broad, heterogeneous environment for you, so you've got choice.